Hey everyone, this is Mike with BuzzTox, and today we'll be doing a breakdown review of Chapter 6 of The Mandalorian, titled The Prisoner. The episode begins with the Razor Crest landing on a typical Star Wars space hangar. We again see the kind of attention which full Mandalorian armor gets, which Mando was warned about in Episode 3. We're introduced to Ran, a mercenary who seems to own the space station we are on, and used to run with Mando in his earlier days. Mando has reached out to him looking for a job, and Ran is putting together a crew to break one of their associates out of a prison. Ran is interested mostly in Mando's ship, which is capable of jamming scanners due to it being made pre-Empire, but Mando doesn't want his ship involved because his child is on board and he wants to keep him safe. However, Ran tells Mando that the Razor Crest is the only real reason why he was allowed to come back. We then have our introduction to Mayfield, a mercenary and former Imperial sharpshooter played by comedian Bill Burr, who I think is the best part of this show. However, I'm extremely biased because I'm a big fan of his. Mayfield is going to lead the team for Ran and takes offense for them inferring that he was just a stormtrooper. Mayfield makes fun of the Razor Crest in a similar fashion to what Luke said about the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope. He also says the ship looks like a Canto Bight slot machine, and this was actually the city with the casinos shown in The Last Jedi. We then get our introduction to the rest of the team. There's a Devonian named Berg, the muscle played by the always amazing Clancy Brown. And rewatch Bill Burr in this scene shaking his head while Clancy walks around the Mandalorian. He's hilarious in this show. We get a protocol droid named Zero, who's similar to Forlom, the bounty hunter shown in that bounty hunter scene in Empire Strikes Back. And finally, Xi'an, a purple Twi'lek and the former lover of the Mandalorian, played by Natalia Tina. She's good with knives and worked with Mando and Ran back in the day. They go over the mission, which is very Solo-esque, and the episode turns into this typical heist theme. Mando is upset when he finds out that the transport ship they will be intercepting is a New Republic one, showing that he has some sort of amount of respect for the rising government, even though he said their law enforcement capabilities were a joke in Episode 3. Again, just like with the AT-ST in Episode 4, and with going after the Imperial mercenary in the last episode, the Mandalorian acts very cautious when confronted with a difficult task. He isn't eager to take on a maximum security transport, and this is most likely because of his newfound responsibilities as the surrogate father to the baby Yoda. And again, it's not actually Yoda here, I'm just saying baby Yoda because he doesn't have his own name yet. The mercenaries are more cavalier, and they think they can pull it off as long as Zero, the droid, is piloting the crest. He's a bit of an arrogant droid. The Mando comes into conflict with the crew after Berg gets into his weapon stash and Mayfield finds Baby Yoda. Again, Burr brings some comedic elements to this tense scene. He teases that Mando is probably a Gungan, referencing Jar Jar Binks, and asks if Xi'an and Mando made the Yoda baby or if it's just a pet. And just as things come to a head, the ship lands at their destination. It crashes there, really, and they all fly around the ship. They sneak onto the transport, and Mando takes a final look at the room which is holding the baby before leaving, again showing us his concern and emotion by just turning his head. They pass prison cells within the transport, and we get this great glimpse of interesting characters held within. We get an Ardenian like Rio Durant from Solo, one fierce-looking bald guy in what looks like Jedi robes, and an Imperial officer, maybe a high-ranking one. The teams get pinned down by droids after Berg shoots a mouse droid, and we saw them first in A New Hope. Mando ends up coming to the rescue and has to take all of the droids out by himself because Mayfield holds them back. He wants to see what the Mandalorian is made of, and he's impressed by his skills. The droid Zero manages to tap into the security systems just like R2-D2 did in A New Hope and guides them throughout the ship. They get into the prisoner control center, just like Han and the crew did in A New Hope to save Leia, and then they have their standoff with a human New Republic officer. The officer is actually played by Matt Lanter, the voice actor for Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars TV show, so we finally get to see his face here. Bill Burr once again has some great lines, making fun of the guard's nice shoes and matching belt. Mando tries to protect the guard, but the officer is eventually killed by Xi'an, the only one there who could kill him without the Mandalorian starting a firefight. Mayfield notices that the guard has set off a New Republic emergency tracking beacon, so now they're on the clock to release the prisoner and escape. We find out that the prisoner is Xi'an's brother, Quinn, who in The Mandalorian knows from his younger days as a mercenary. It seems Mando once left Quinn behind on a mission, and Xi'an is still upset about him leaving her and his life as a mercenary. They use this as reasons to betray the Mandalorian, trapping him alone in Quinn's cell. Mando has a great escape scene next, and then takes control of the ship's security doors. This is definitely the best part of the show, and it's almost in the horror motif as the lighting changes to red and Mando traps and separates the mercenaries, taking them out one at a time in a kind of video game fashion. Tension is also built at the same time by Zero seeing and then trying to hunt down the child within the Razor Crest. The fight with the Devaronian was great, and once again, just like with the Mud Creature in Episode 2, we see that Mando is not great against brute force, but he uses his head and that same trick from his intro scene in Chapter 1 with the door to take the Devaronian out. Was anyone else surprised to see him alive at the end with a headache? That second door looked pretty devastating to me, and I thought he was crushed and gone. Mando then wins against Xi'an because of his protective armor and manages to get the upper hand on her with a knife. Then we get the best sequence of the episode when he takes out Mayfield, with the strobe lighting enhancing this horror theme they were going for here and showing us just how good the Mando can be at stealth. Quinn then appeals to Mando's honor and hopes that he'll be spared and brought back alive. And we get another great scene in which we see that the baby is going to use the Force, and then the droid Zero explodes. The little guy is surprised for a second, thinking that he did it by accident, and then we see it was Mando who actually shot the droid and saved the baby. Quinn is brought back, and Mando gets paid and leaves. We then find out that Ran, just like almost everyone else, has betrayed the Mandalorian and sends the order out for a gunship to destroy the Razor Crest. But this time, Mando is prepared for the betrayal, and he's snuck that New Republic homing beacon into Quinn's pocket. 3 X-Wings then jump out of hyperspace, following the signal, and disable the space station, perhaps killing Ran and Quinn. In a little Easter egg, the X-Wing fighter pilots are played by Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa, all directors of different episodes of The Mandalorian. And yet again, just like the last 3 episodes, the Mandalorian flies off into space. Where he goes next, no one knows. This was a pretty formulaic episode following the make a cool team and send them on a mission kind of theme that we've recently seen done well in movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, and where we've seen it done horribly in movies like Suicide Squad. It's also a pretty common theme in old westerns, the general idea and theme that we're following in this show. And I think that The Mandalorian did it well here, not diving much into their backgrounds. This time, at least, they get to stay alive at the end to hopefully contribute to the Star Wars universe in the future. We have so little time left with only 2 episodes in the series that it seems strange to have yet another episode here which really didn't bring the main storyline along and only provided a bit more backstory for our main character. Xi'an is our only real source, giving us some character development in the episode for Mando. She tells us that the Mandalorian was quite vicious back in the day at an event at Alzoc 3. Mando says he did what he had to do in that situation, but Xi'an thinks she knows who he really is, someone who enjoyed the killing. It seems their relationship fell apart because Mando was all business, and it seems Xi'an was bothered by his insistence in keeping to his Mandalorian code. After he left her, he moved on to the Bounty Hunters Guild. By now, Mando has gained some level of a better morality than he used to have back in the day, I guess. He defends the New Republic Guard in this episode and says that there isn't going to be any killing. So when did he get this newfound morality? Because I'm not sure it's been shown on this show so far or stated clearly. Did he have it in episode 1? Or is this a newfound respect for life which he gained from his time with the farmers in the last episode? Or is he defending the guards because, like I mentioned before, he has this level of respect for the New Republic? He stated once before that they were a joke in enforcing justice, but he may still see them as a legitimate government now that the Empire has fallen. I'm hoping that he defended the Guard because it may be revealed later that he's worked with the rebellion in the past. We have a lot of questions in our main plot which have been largely ignored in the last 3 episodes. They've all been very entertaining, with a lot of great references to the previous movies for hardcore fans, but they've really lacked in the substance we got in those first 3 episodes. We also still haven't seen the introduction to our main villain, Moff Gideon, played by Giancarlo Esposito, that we saw in the trailers, and I'm making a guess that it was him who was meeting Fennec Shan on Tatooine and found her body at the end of that episode. Well, we'll have to wait and hope we get some answers next week. Remember that the next episode will be airing on Wednesday, December 18th. Thanks again, and remember to like, subscribe, and check out some of our other videos here on BuzzTox.